Welcome to Riverlife Podcasts. We're a church family embracing the Father's presence, releasing empowered people to declare and demonstrate Christ's kingdom. We trust that God would use what you hear today to bless and grow you so that you would be a blessing to those around you. For more information about Riverlife Baptist Church, go to riverlifechurch.org.au or find us on social media.
So this is out of 1 Timothy. Train yourself to be godly. For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding both promise for now, the present life, and the life to come. So, Happy New Year, everyone. My name is Ian, if you don't know me, and if you do know me, it's also Ian, haha. So how many of you have been to gym on this kind of first week of the year? Come on, own up. Wow, sheesh, look at you guys go. Thank you. Okay, well, good. That's inspirational. And like the verse says, it is good. Physical training is of some value, but how much better godly training? So I guess welcome to the place where we talk about spiritual gym, because all through January, we're talking about the spiritual disciplines, the formations that make us stronger. Listen again to that out of Timothy. Physical training is of some value. Tick, nice. Keep going. But godliness has value for all things. Why? Because it holds promise for both the present life, good for now, and the life to come. That's just a little intro, guys. You're in the right place. Welcome. And we've been doing a series on faith habits, as Ada called them, and I kind of feel it's a pretty cool phrase too, holy habits last week. Faith habits, holy habits. And we're inviting you every week in different ways to pick a new holy habit that maybe for you is a little bit new, or just like something you haven't done for a long time, or something you've only done a little bit. Also to deepen an existing one that you've already kind of got accustomed to doing. Like here tonight, by the way, this is a holy habit. You gathered. Like we said last week, it's awesome. Right now, you've already exercising spiritual discipline. You're not doing something else because you're here. But to deepen one of the existing ones, okay? And then thirdly, to share a little bit of that journey. And if that means just being in like a group, or just with one other person that you're accountable to, or in your life group if you're part of that, that's amazing. Just to share that journey as well. And that's what we're challenging all through this month of January. Guys, discipline is the bridge from where you are to where you want to be, okay? This is like a saying that applies to all sorts of things, including the gym, by the way. So where you are now in training for something, physically, spiritually, is not usually where you want to be. The bridge between that, at least partly, is discipline. I like that saying, and it's important. So we're talking about spiritual disciplines, and it's this idea that it takes daily intentionality and discipline to make things that are habits. And as apprentices to Jesus, we need to daily do things or weekly do things that start to then become these spiritual habits or disciplines in our lives. And you know what? Collectively, the effect over time of that is massive. It's like we give space, more and more space for God to form us between Sundays, right? And on Sundays, but especially between Sundays, because when you wake up tomorrow, that's really where it counts so much. And so let's go into the holy habit for this week. But just quickly, two things I wanted to mention. Jesus is always the center, not the habit. I know it's obvious, but we have to keep saying that. It's not the habit that's amazing. I mean, it is. It's great. But it's always about getting to Jesus and closer to Him. And the second thing is grace first. All right? Because we don't do stuff so we can be closer to Jesus in the sense that He will now move closer. Well done. Now I'm going to be kinder to you. Now I'm going to love you more. Never, never. Because grace first. And so keep that in mind always. Be graceful to yourself as He is graceful as well. So this morning's message, if you missed it, I really do recommend going and listening to it through the week or watching it, but then you have to look at Sam for that long, but you know what I mean, that's fine. But certainly listen in the background. So I enjoyed looking at you this morning, Sam. But I really was inspired, Sam. I want to say I already decided that Tuesdays, I'm telling my wife here as well because this is going to affect her, but Tuesdays I'm going to be fasting. So when you see me again, please just say, how's it going with your Tuesday fasting, Pastor Ian? I would appreciate that, really. I would challenge you to do that. It will help me. We all need accountability. But thank you, Sam, for that. For that inspiration. And go and watch that. But tonight, it's another discipline of abstinence. Abstinence is not a fun word usually. Abstaining from, not doing something. This morning, not eating. Tonight, not being with others. And that's not as bad, right? I mean, some of us love it, but we'll get to that in a bit. Anyway, this is the discipline of solitude. Read this. A community, it's up on the screen, I think, a community of peace and quiet in a culture of anxiety and noise through the practice of solitude. So basically, we're talking about intentional time in the quiet to be alone with yourself and with God. Intentional time to be alone with yourself and God. We all know any relationship, it's really important to have some time alone together. Okay, the big relationships of our lives, those are important. And how much more with the Lord? If you can, would you just open your Bibles to Psalm 46? It's not up on the screen, but I'd love you to just actually see it for yourself. I'm going to turn there myself. It's kind of awkward when you're up here. You feel like I should be getting there quicker. Okay, Psalm 46. There's Psalms. I found it. It's easy if you've got a phone, eh? All right, so for Psalm 46, verse 10, I'm just going to read and zone in on this part of this beautiful psalm. You've heard these words before, 99% of this room, and if you haven't, enjoy them for the first time. Psalm 46:10. He says, that's the Lord, He says, be still and know that I am God. That's going to be kind of like an anchoring verse for tonight. And just to explain, I'm not going to go into it too much, but the be still, the Hebrew for that is Rapha. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I'm close. Rapha, and it really means to relax, to let go, to cease. So relax and know that I'm God. Let go and know that I'm God. Cease, stop, be still, and know that I am God. Guys, modern life, like secularism and distraction, are already against this and against us in that. It's a huge threat. Like it's obviously a digital world we've grown up in. Some of you, it's like only ever been that. For me, it's kind of shifted since about 2000-ish. And like we're the first group of people to go through what it looks like to be an apprentice to Jesus, despite that massive shift. To state the obvious, but it's a massive factor on our formation. So we're the first group of humans going through that. And it is the age of digital, but it's the age of distraction. We know that. It's the economy we live in. The urgent is constantly getting in the way of the important. And so we know it's important to have solitude, but actually think about this. Our devices keep us tethered to people all the time, and to things, and to the noisy world. And so it's a distraction from all our relationships, but perhaps none more than the one with the Lord. So the practice of solitude, it really is one of the most important practices. And I just want to quickly, before we go on to other stuff, I want to distinguish solitude from isolation or loneliness. It's not the same, right? So loneliness feels like inner emptiness, or isolation, that's inner emptiness. Solitude in the Lord feels like inner fulfillment. And why not? Just a quick story. One of my best New Year's Eves, we've just had New Year's, but one of my best New Year's Eves honestly was by myself. I've told some people this. I know my wife knows the story. But I was like in my mid-20s, and some friends about 30 minutes drive. This is in Western Cape in South Africa. About 30 minutes drive away in a place called Sedgefield. Said, they're having a party on the beach. They're going to light a big fire. And I was just with my parents. I mean, not just, they're cool. But I was like, that sounds good. I'm in my 20s. I really should go. It's a bit dangerous to drive, but let me do it. So I drove, and I got there at about 11 p.m., and they said, just look out for the fire on the beach, we'll be there. And I got to the beach, I came over the kind of dune from the parking lot, and there were just fires all over the beach, and then just pitch black. I was like, no. So I started walking towards the first one, and it's so awkward because the fire faces, the faces all turned inward to the fire, so you just see little head silhouettes until you're right there, and they all look at you, and they can see your reflection. And then they're like, what are you doing here? And once again, and then I went to another fire, same awkward moment because I didn't know anyone there. And I went to about 5 or 6 fires until I was like, it's 10 to 12. I'm about to go into 2000, whatever it was. a long time ago. I'm around to go into that, like by myself or frantically on the beach. So I was like, just give up. Went to a sand dune, went back to the sand dune, sat on my own, opened a little bottle of bubbly. I know it's a bit lame, but there I had it with me in the bag. And I toasted myself and prayed to the Lord and spent about like 2 hours there. And it was actually, seriously, it was one of my best New Year's Eve. So that is a bit of a random story, which I kind of put a big question mark, should I tell or not? But now that I have, let me move on quickly. Anyway, the point is, it's not the same being alone and being solitude. That was solitude. I felt good. I felt rich in the Lord in that moment. I didn't feel loneliness. It's also not mindfulness, right? That solitude is very in vogue, right? You can find it all over Instagram feed. It's great to be mindful, all that. It's not that it's wrong. It's just not the same. Mindfulness is focused on self. Solitude focuses on God. Corey's here tonight, Corey and Rosie, and when I said I'm speaking about solitude, he was like, oh, but we're never alone. Because I know Corey spends lots of time on his own, and I'm not talking about Rosie here. Sure, he's got Rosie, but even when he doesn't, he's like, we're never alone. In other words, he understands that when he's alone, he's never lonely. He's with the Lord, completely with the Lord. And so mindfulness focuses on self. Solitude is seeking the Lord in that space. All right, so solitude in the Bible. Let's go to the Bible. It's full of this in the sense that Jesus, right in the beginning, he started his ministry with solitude. Remember, after the baptism of Jesus, the Spirit of God, not the enemy, don't get that passage wrong. The enemy tempted him there, but the Spirit of God led him into the wilderness. For 40 days, he was solo. It was quiet most of the time. And that's where the whole ministry of Jesus begins. And from that time, he went to the desolate places of various kinds because he knew he needed it. And so over the next 3 years, we'll see all over. I'll just skip quickly through these. Mark 1:35, rising early while it was still dark, Jesus went to a solitary place and prayed. Luke 5:16, and he would withdraw to desolate places and pray. Just a bit later, actually, after that, in 6:12, Luke 6:12, he spends the night alone in the desert hills. And then it talks about the next day he chose the 12. Like that's a pretty important decision. What did he do the night before? He spent it in the hills alone, right? And then let's put this up on the screen because I love this. He clearly practiced solitude himself, but he also constantly invited others into it with his disciples. He knew they needed it too. We needed it too. And so I love this verse. And take this for not just what he said to his disciples, what he is saying to his disciples right now. You're his disciples. Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. You know, he says these words in that context just after John the Baptist's death. He himself is needing to be alone to process that. His disciples are upset, I'm sure. And it's actually quite a funny story in the sense that you can imagine the disciples like, oh, this is good. Retreat. Yes, come on. We're going on a retreat with Jesus. And they go off and they get into the boat. And by the time they get to the other side, everyone has heard somehow that Jesus is heading over that way. And so when they land on the shore for the retreat, it's filled with crowds again because they want more of Jesus. And the disciples must be like, oh, now what? Like, where are we going to go? Like, which mountain? How are we going to get rid of these guys? Jesus teaches the entire next day. Gets to the afternoon, the disciples are like, please, send them home. They're getting hungry. And also, we're tired of people. I'm sure they're thinking that. And Jesus is too. And instead, what does he do? He feeds them all. 5,000 of them, plus women and children, are fed. He performs a great miracle. And then it does say that night that Jesus went up the mountain to pray. But I think what I love about that little passage is it teaches us that although these disciplines are always so important, Jesus is all about people. In other words, don't do this stuff selfishly. Because some of you introverts out there are like, yeah, totally. Why don't my friends understand? Why doesn't my family understand? I need time by myself. The Lord commanded. No. Like, listen to this. He waits and he deals with the people. In other words, godly solitude should fuel our love for others, not replace it. And we displace the world by stepping into the place of solitude with God. Yes, we do. But it's not about escaping the world. It's about being reformed by him in that place to come back out and enter mission again. And Jesus knows that. So listen to that invitation again. Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. And that other one from that psalm in the beginning, be still and know that I am God. So just want to talk about a bit of the fruits and things like that of solitude, of this discipline, and a couple of experiences of that. But I just wanted to say as well, the word silence comes in a lot too when people talk about solitude, and that's natural, right? Normally when you're alone, it's quiet. Normally, not everyone. Some people do speak themselves, but generally they're strongly linked and taken as one practice. So all through the church history, really, you'll see those two linked very strongly, almost into one single practice. So we're talking solitude, but kind of reading in that silent stillness can go alongside in that. I'm sure most of you have heard of something, it just fascinates me, but there's something called an anechoic room or chamber, and they're all over the place, mostly in America, but I don't know, there may be one in Australia. And they're rooms where basically it's the quietest room you can have. Some of you have seen videos about them, right? There's no reflected sound, and so they're super quiet. They've got a room that's gone right down to minus 20 decibels. 0 being silent, what we know is silent. Minus 20, these rooms, okay? So these, I know it sounds weird. Yes, I see Kira's face. I don't really get that either. But basically, we scaled it on what we think is silence. This is a whole other level of silence. And in that room, it's a myth that you go crazy and whatever, probably, unless, I don't know. But generally, you can survive it. But what you start to hear is every little thing. It doesn't take long before you start hearing your blinks. It doesn't take long before you start hearing your joints doing these weird little crackling things, almost like underwater. If you got underwater, you hear the little coral things cricking, and that's almost how your joints start to sound. And then, of course, your stomach, definitely. Of course, your stomach, definitely. But also your heart and your blood starting to pump through. It's really freaky. But here's the thing I love about that idea is that silence is not empty. It's just where we get to hear things we don't usually hear. What does that room look like for you in terms of solitude? Going to hear the things you don't usually hear from the Lord. And we'll have a bit of time to practice that in a couple of minutes. Just on that extrovert thing, there's a couple of little memes or whatever. You can find so many of these, of course, but I like them just to relieve just to relax a bit. Because some of you, when you hear something like this, you're like, this is totally my thing. I love it. I'm an introvert. Solitude is what I love, or the opposite. In other words, this comes more naturally to some than others, being alone. That's the truth. So just quickly, seeing we've already made it participatory, can I see how many extroverts in the room? Like, you're definitely an extrovert. Yay, come on. And how many, okay, I won't go there. It's not even worth it. It's like, I actually didn't expect any hands. The extroverts are like, I don't want to be named and shamed by those introverts. They often pick on extroverts. It's not fair. And then if I ask about the introverts, of course, they're not going to put their hand up. But it's like, yeah, like to themselves. Pastor Joe recently taught me a new word. It's introvertuous, which is kind of just something he saw online. But it's quite funny. Basically, my definition anyway of this is, it means something like, I'm choosing to be here with you, but I'd rather not be. That's like introvertuous. In other words, I'm an introvert, but because I'm a good person, I'll still be here with you. I often feel a bit like that. Anyway, just to say about that, whatever you are naturally, we all know that living intentionally and being apprentices of Jesus often means doing the very opposite of what comes naturally. So don't go, yeah, well, that's not really my habit because, I'm not really an introvert. No, it definitely is yours. By the way, next week, Pastor Nate is speaking on community. Isn't it next week? And community and solitude are so incredibly linked. And there's a whole thing about that. I'm just going to put one quick quote on the screen, and then I'm going to leave it there because of time, just to let you digest it. But quote appears in a moment. Yes, we must seek out the recreating stillness of solitude if we want to be with others meaningfully. We must seek the fellowship and accountability of others if we want to be alone safely. We must cultivate both if we are to live in obedience. Richard Foster, there we go, boom. You can't argue. But that's just something to chew on. All right, I'm going to move on, just because now that you know that it's for you, I just want to quickly outline a few things that aren't so easy and then why we do it. So first thing that's not easy is there's going to be friction. Why? Because we generally like to do things that get applauded. It's just a flesh thing. And secondly, we genuinely like to do things that are productive. Like wasting time just like sitting, like, no, really? It's not easy, right? So the flesh is against it. Not only that, but there's a battle for our flesh, right? And so there's also an enemy not wanting you alone with God and to be meaningfully with Him. So that's why there's friction towards this. The second thing, besides friction, is actually not that fun sometimes. Actually, when solitude starts to get really like hectic, and we can put that quote up, I like this. The school of solitude is a school few care to learn in, though none instructs us better. That's from the 1600s, but the guy was wise. Because even when you do manage to carve out time and space, it's often not like all that it's meant to be. You come away feeling like either like nothing really happened, or going into it takes time. There's a lot of like, it feels awkward and weird. And then once you're properly in that space, coming back is tricky too. So both in the entering and the exiting of solitude, there's difficulty. And I just wanted to say that. But here's the thing, it's so worth it. I'm just going to list these quickly, but so much fruit comes from practicing solitude. And these are all important, so I can't skip them, but I'm going to go fast, so hold on. 5 things. Number 1, transformation. As we practice solitude, we make space for God to shape us between Sundays. I said that earlier. Between youth and young adult camps, in the ordinary moments of tomorrow, that's where it starts to shape you. A quiet inner confidence and a non-anxious presence. So, transformation. Number 2, time and space to internalize what God has said to you at other times. Because often we go through, that's another good moment, yes, oh, that's true, oh, another good sermon, wow, good podcast. We're not actually stopping and internalizing that stuff. Number 3, clarity. Like the truth is, our perspectives are often cloudy. I don't know about you, but just things are unclear a lot of the time. And it's almost like life is so hectic and frenetic that it's always sort of shaking a bit. Think of a jar with stuff in it. It never actually sits long enough for the stuff to settle and the water to clear to see what's going on. It's a cool little picture. Let's face it, we live pretty frantic lives. And so the jar is always full of stuff. And so clarity is the 4th one. And finally, freedom. Because when all those things I've mentioned, the potent combination of all those things together results in a new freedom to be. Freedom from the need to be occupied. Freedom from the need to be stimulated, to be entertained. And maybe this is the most important. Freedom from living our lives in relation to other people only. Like we do live in relation to other people. But to only live that way strips us of so much. I actually chatted to a few people about solitude. I was preparing for this over the last few weeks. And I actually saw Bailey. Bailey's here tonight. He wasn't going to be, but he is. Hi, Bailey. Bailey's one of those guys who gets away by himself a bit. And so I've actually called him up, and sure enough, he was in Melbourne. But anyway, he's back now. But I asked him a little bit about his trips, his camping trips, his time alone. And this is kind of a quote. He said, solitude is now built into my everyday lunch break. Sure, he has these amazing trips and epic surf missions and all that. But actually what he talked about most when I called him was his lunch break. Because at the beginning of his lunch break, he refuses to have a podcast on or talk to you. He goes and sits somewhere. And before eating, he just sits for a couple of minutes. And he said the cumulative of that has been life-changing. The way he goes back into life from that is just so much different. And so I asked him if it affected other relationships. He said, so it affects other relationships so much. And I think you'll know that. If you've met Bailey, you'll feel that. There's just this non-anxious presence. It's not just because he's surfed and he's chilled. No, he's been with the Lord on a daily basis to that. So I know that'll embarrass Bailey, but I just wanted to, it's real. Like if you intentionally do it over time, even without the surfing, camping trips, just your lunch break, carve out some time to just sit and be, not to put on music or a podcast. He also said when he goes on those trips, he carves out the first hour or two to say no music, no podcast until I've got to 10 a.m. And he just sits with the Lord. And then he's like, okay, now I can have my podcast. That's cool. I won't quote the other person because of time, but there's people doing this. Let's learn from each other. It's awesome. We're all learning and we're growing together in this. All right, so what's next? I'm going to give you just a couple of quick little suggestions. They're actually in the Riverlife News. So if you didn't get one of those, you can grab one on your way out. And it's just some practical things. I'm going to fly through them because here's the thing. They're things we have to do. Like spiritual disciplines are not things we hear about and they go, I hope I do get better at that. They're things we just have to do. Put them in a calendar. Do something about. I love this phrase, without him we can't, without us he won't. I'll just drop that there, but there's lots there, right? It's typically this dance between us and the Lord. And so, what are you going to do this week that'll move you towards solitude? And remember, the aim is not to be faith habit gurus. It's to just start to look slowly but surely a little bit more like Jesus, and that will happen. He's given us these things, these practices. So, some practical suggestions. First, what I describe as like the little solitudes. I think that actually comes from the Richard Foster book as well. They talk about little solitudes. So, little things you can build in, like what I mentioned Bailey does. First thing I'll say is from practical experience, how you start your day matters so much. How you start your day really matters. Rise early. Don't look at your phone for the first 30 minutes. I know you know this stuff, most of you, but actually do it. Like tomorrow. Don't. Leave it out of the room and don't look at it for 30 minutes. How you set your day will change your day. Another one. Intentionally turn your coffee or tea making or your shower or your bath, whatever, into like a little ritual time with the Lord. And I know you might say, oh, well, I'll do that anyway. Well, do you really? Like, do you switch off other stuff and just say, Lord, here I am. Hear that coffee grinder. Smell that. And just be with the Lord in that moment. Thirdly, a solo walk without a phone on. Or maybe even without a phone, if that's safe enough. But certainly without it on. Like just a solo walk. And leave the music. And I say this, I hate not doing stuff with music. Anyway, but that's why I'm teaching myself here. Pay attention to God's presence in your heart as you walk. Just a solo walk. Here's the thing. Before a meal, instead of saying grace with the people you're with or with by yourself, just a bit of silence. Like mindfulness of the Lord and his closeness to you in that moment. Just 30 seconds instead of grace. Here's a cool one that my wife and I have been doing a bit more. Stepping outside before bed. Just feeling the cool of the night, maybe praying together or praying alone. But just stepping outside before bed into the cool of the night, into the dark, and being quiet. Leave for appointments early. And then sit in your car. This is crazy for me. I'm always late for things. Like imagine. But you've got like a 1:30 doctor's appointment. You need 15 minutes on Google Maps. You leave at like 12:45. I would never do that. But this is a great idea. Anyway, so when you get there, you sit in silence in your car. Guys, our cars are like these amazing little sanctuaries potentially. They're underutilized. Some of you know this. I mean, some of you like, you pretty much live in your car, and that's great. But they're underutilized, quiet sanctuaries. Okay, we're almost done. These are important things, though. They're really cool things to try. Try doing, this is hard. This is another hard one for me. Try doing your regular exercise solo, which I find easy because I don't like running or cycling with people. I just like to be on my own. That's the easy part. But in silence, like nothing. That hill's going to feel hard. Try it, though. Let's try it, okay? So that's another one. And then lastly, just using some centering exercises as you pray to keep your little time of 5 minutes before your lunch break or while you're running a little bit focused. And so we'll try one of those before we end tonight, okay? Just a little centering focus exercise. But I did want to add the little old school 90s evangelical church quiet time. It kind of got a bad rap the last 10, 15, like the early 2000s was like, quiet time, come on, I'm always with the Lord, true. But the old quiet time is a great idea, like actually carving out half an hour, whatever, to be in the scriptures in the morning at a time you're awake, or in the evening, and to do it like that. That's just really cool, obvious thing. Just to add, though, sometimes a special place really helps. If you haven't found that already, a little chair that's where I do my quiet time. It could even be the chapel, your car, etc. But make it associated with that. And then, that's the mini solitudes, but I wanted to mention the big ones because we talked about Jesus going on retreat with the disciples, didn't work out. Some of us love the idea of retreat, but just to say two things, there's kind of a weekly or monthly mini retreat that's really worth putting in. It could be part of what you're going to try for Sabbath. If you were challenged last week at the Sabbath, are you starting the Sabbath or you continue your Sabbath on a Saturday or Sunday, whenever it is? Build in a few hours of solo time if you can. Try that on a weekly or monthly basis, like a mini retreat. And then there's the extended retreat. And so this is something I know my wife and I benefited so much from before we came to Brisbane. We haven't built it in as much as we'd like to now, but it was like a quarterly if possible. I know the Cutcliffes have been doing this. I've been jealous. But it's like a quarterly time where you literally book a place and you go, that's a time to be away. It's typically overnight. It doesn't have to be like 10 nights. One night is amazing. But it's an extended, deeper time of solitude and silence. And so my wife and I would do Airbnb or something that we could find cheap, even quite close to our house, and literally tag team because we got kids. 24 hours I got, meet each other for lunch, the kids, hi guys, hi. No, I'm home with the kids, she's there on her own 24 hours. That's the way we did it. There's always a way. But book it in the calendar, that's the thing, extended times. So guys, we're going to wrap it up now. And it's really exciting stuff. I hope you feel a bit excited about what you can start to do or carry on doing. And there's stuff, as I say, in the Riverlife news just to look at, just to remind you of what I've been flying through a little bit. But these habits are super exciting because we get to do them together. We get to do them in our own creative ways and learn from each other. And the Lord will change us as we do it, as we make this space for Him. Don't walk out of here tonight without making at least a firm decision to intentionally plug 1 or 2 or whatever these things. Like I did this morning when Sam spoke about fasting, I was like, okay, let's do it Tuesday. We're going to do it. Now it's in my calendar. But don't leave tonight without saying, what's it going to look like for solitude for me this year? Remember, discipline, intentionality is the bridge from where you are now to where you want to be. So let's make that happen. All right, I'd ask you, maybe we could just have the keys playing because it just helps, because we're not doing silence right now. Yes, that's great, thank you. Maybe we could all stand. Because as we wrap up, I thought it would be cool to just try one of those sort of centering prayers. Again, don't be put off by the word. It's exactly what it is. It's centering us on how we're feeling, where we are, in place and time, who God is. And we're going to do this and end with silence, okay? So just a couple of instructions. It's not difficult. I'm going to just read through and try and remember because I don't want to interrupt. We're going to have a little bit of silence. Let it be awkward. It's meant to, not awkward, but just be cool with it. I've told you to, so everyone's going to feel a bit of like, oh, I wonder how long this won't be long, but just enjoy it. And so in a moment, we're going to go silently, but just to say what to do in that time. Breathe deeply. Like invite the Lord to just come into that space. It's kind of like consecrating the time to Him, even if it's 2 minutes. Just say, Lord, be in this space with me. It helps to close your eyes just because it's distracting otherwise. You can do that now. And here's the thing. It's great to choose a simple phrase or word to repeat. And you can just do it quietly by yourself. I kind of want to give you the one that we read earlier because it's so beautiful. Be still and know that I am God. You could do it like, be still. And then move on to be still and know. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I am God. I know you're already starting to do that and I'm interrupting, but we're going to have silence to keep doing that in a moment. As you do it, start to just feel like contemplate who God is, what you're feeling in the moment. Remember, the goal is not hearing from Him. You're not trying to work out something or get your answer. You're trying to be aware of His presence. He's here. He's here with you. He's here with us. And then sit with Him in that space of knowing He is God in the silence. If you get distracted, go back to the phrase, be still and know that I am God. Let's be quiet together.
Thanks for listening to this Riverlife podcast. Make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all the latest content. If this podcast has raised any questions for you, contact us via church@riverlifechurch.org.au or through Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for listening.